Welcome in, builders and cultists alike. This week we're taking a look at Middle Age Relay, the Fallen Star. This is one of the more requested nations. I think people like A, just water nations that are competitive, and B, the Cthulhu-esque influence of this nation. Let's see what they're all about. In ages past, a distant star inhabited by a great race of strange alien beings was struck with an unimaginable catastrophe. The star fell from the heavens, breaking into tiny shards. One such shard fell through the spheres and down upon the world. The shard came to rest on the ocean floor, and there a remnant of this great race adapted and survived. They multiplied and enslaved a race of fish-like humanoids by sheer strength of mind. Relay, the sunken city, is a mind-defying place built under the sea with an architecture unlike any known to man. In the halls of Relay, the star spawns, the great ones who survived the fall, plan the reemergence of their great race. The star spawns are powerful mages with great knowledge of distant stars, and all of the great race are powerful Minecraft crafters. The coastal forts of Relay have a special well where women can submerge themselves in the hope of being impregnated by the Great One. However, most will be taken by the Deep Ones instead, and the women's offspring will be strange, fish-like humanoids instead of the noble star children they wanted. These half-human hybrids are usually devoted to the cause of putting mankind below the sea and often join the army of Relay free of charge. As a race, we are underwater, and that's kind of true. We're mostly amphibious in our troop lineup, so that is not too big of a detriment here. Our military is made up of Atlanteans and Oceanian slaves, hybrids, and illithids. For magic, we are very strong in astral, pretty strong in water, and we have a little bit of earth, some glamour, and some nature. Our priests are average, and we can summon void beings. For scales and blesses, we get a magic limit of +1. We build standard forts of the age, that means castles. For sites, we have the Sunken City. This produces 3 astral pearls and 2 water gems. And we have the Void Gate. This allows us to send an astral mage to summon void monsters, which are pretty cool but very limited. And it also enables the recruitment of our cap-only mage, the Star Spawn. Units and sacreds. As you can see, we have a pretty wide lineup of troops with a mixture of useful and less useful. In addition, we have some free spawn, and we have some things that we can summon in from the Void Gate. So quite a few troops here, actually. Starting us off, we have the Lobo Guard. This is similar to what we had in Early Age. 5 gold, 1 resource, 2 recruitment points. They have a little tougher and stronger than humans, but a little less trained. They are fully amphibian. They are magical beings. That's going to be a lot of our better stuff. So just note that anything that targets magical beings specifically, you could be weak to. We are mindless. That makes us immune to certain spells and gives us 50 morale, essentially meaning we are unbreakable. We have dark vision, 100%, and it is a slave troop. You can see here, 2 gold per year, so basically nothing. Big weakness is our 5 magic resist and low protection. However, for a slave troop that is this low quality, quote unquote, having 50 morale, we still have a 9 attack for 12 slashing damage. Lobo Guard are okay. They're okay. It's nice to have something that will definitely stay on the field. So having a few of these can be rather nice. Next up, we have Slave Trooper. These are kind of those little Atlantean guys. Here, this is more like a militia troop, like a slave militia almost. 7 morale, 9 gold, 2 resources, 6 recruitment points. They are amphibious and do have dark vision. He's wielding a bone trident, which is a length 3. Only 10 attack with 18 pierce. I'm not too in love with these guys. We actually have some good troops, and that really low morale, we can't really fully solve that. Not easily, at least. Next up, we have the same guy. This is a Slave Guardian. He's the same, however, he has put on a shell armor and a shell cap. Again, we just have better stuff. Maybe if you need like patrolling or something, but even then I think I would go with like slave troopers just because they're even cheaper to produce. Next up, we move into some of our merman type ones. We have the slave trooper. This one at least has the benefit of having a net. Otherwise, basic human stats, except for being amphibious and a slave. 7 morale is pretty bad. Decent magic resistance. Having a few nets available to you could be useful, especially if you're fighting something with like glamour or super high defense. A few nets thrown into that might be able to help you out. Otherwise, not particularly useful. Stone spears especially, not cutting it anymore. Next, we have the slave trooper. Note this is an aquatic one only. High speed, because of the aquatic and being underwater, is vaguely notable. Maybe a flank with some of these if someone's not expecting it. Otherwise, again, not particularly useful. We have the slave guardian. This is a merfolk version. Shell armor, shell cap, stone spear. Amphibian, is a slave, has that low morale. I don't find these particularly useful. We have the slave guardian again, but now wielding a trident. This is an aquatic version. This one I actually can see some use for. Being aquatic, underwater, really helps you out on the speed and your encumbrance. A few of these to flank if you needed to hit something really hard, like at a throne per se, could actually be useful. I wouldn't over-recruit these since they're aquatic only and not amphibian, but I think I could see myself getting a few of these in the right circumstance. Next up, we have Slave Guardian yet again. This is a bone trident, shell armor variety, no helmet. Does have the dark vision, amphibian, and slave. Again, 7 morale is pretty bad. I don't see using this one particularly. Next up, we have the Meteorite Guard. Now here we're talking. This is a very nice, heavy infantry. Size 3, better than human stats, generally speaking. 13 gold, 33 resources is pretty high, and the 16 recruitment points is notable. However, you get an amphibious, dark vision slave, but it's a slave with 12 morale. So if you have a taskmaster, you can quite easily get this up to 14 or 15 morale, which is really nice for a good line troop. They have 19 protection, although that's 17 on the head, 19 on the body. That's totally fine. And good magic resistance at 13. Their notable weakness here, I would say, I guess, is 9 defense, but they do have a length 3 weapon, so they can repel, and they have 11 attack skill with it, which is pretty nice. Their weapon is piercing and magical for 22 damage. That is quite nice. They are equipped with meteorite armor and meteorite cap, which is pretty decent gear, although the encumbrance is relatively high, so they will poop out kind of quickly. These guys would benefit quite a lot from friendly currents if you're fighting underwater. Just a thought there. Otherwise, these are excellent line holders for you, and you're going to quite like to get these. So I do think that pushes us quite heavily towards production on this nation. Should also be noted, it doesn't say this on these guys. Everything we're going to talk about on this bottom row here, except for these last couple, are only recruitable underwater. They're not recruitable in our coastal forts. So getting extra underwater territory so we can get meteorite guards and some of the illithid troops we're going to look at here in a second is very important to us. Getting on land for us is you're going to need to do it A, to win the game, and B, there's some other recruits that maybe you were interested in, but underwater is definitely more valuable than land for us. Next up, we have Shambler Thralls. This is a quite good troop, actually. 20 gold, 1 resource, 22 recruitment points. So no resources, however, the gold and recruitment is kind of high. 24 HP is excellent, good strength value. Their other stats matter a lot less because we are size 4 tramplers. So we come in at amphibian, magic beings that have trample. We're mindless, however. 50 dark vision, and we are a slave troop. So a couple things of note there. We're a trampler that will never run away. That is excellent. We never have to worry about getting friendly trampling going on. So right off the bat, I already like these guys. 8 gold per year, although being tramplers who will never run away with 7 defense and 7 protection, most of the time, these guys are going to be high attrition. However, what a great shock troop to throw into enemies where they are applicable. Either breaking through a front line, flanking the front line from the side, or maybe even a cheeky attack rear to get back in there and do some trampling. You could do a lot of work with Shambler Thralls. And being a slave unit, that is just so cheap. If you did spend an entire year, 8 gold is nothing for these guys. Now, the only downside here is because there are no resources but high recruitment point, they kind of compete with another one of our troops that is also excellent. So it's nice to be spoiled for choice, I suppose. Next, we have a crab hybrid. This one, I don't know about. 35 gold, 1 resource, 33 recruitment points. Good HP, decent natural armor, high strength. Their big weakness is A, they're aquatic only, and I don't know why. Crabs, I mean, I guess there's some aquatic only crabs, but most crabs are amphibians. Oh, they're not amphibians, but they're amphibious. That's just a little weird. In addition, only 8 attack. Now, they do have 18 damage, and note, it's not 18 slashing damage. So anything that negates or lowers piercing, slashing, and blunt, this would not apply to. You just get the 18 damage. However, 8 attack on a size 4, so you're going to get 4 attacks per square. That's not great. That's really not great. I'm not sure why I would get these guys. There are some troops underwater, like octopi, kraken type things that are like kind of blunt resistant mostly, but we don't have blunt troops generally, so I don't know what this guy's purpose is, really. Could be kind of cool, especially if you could buff that attack. That would be really helpful, but I just don't see a use for him. If you know one, let me know, because I think this is a new one. I don't remember this troop. Next up, we have 2 of our really good troops. We have an illithid. Do note, remember, these are not cap only, but they are underwater only. And the illithid here, 50 gold, 1 resource, 37 recruitment points. That is quite high. 28 HP, decent strength, notable. They only have 10 morale, so they're a little bit cowardly, and they are 40 gold each in upkeep per year. That's kind of expensive for upkeep. They have really good magic resistance. They have bad defense and protection. For traits, they come in with amphibian, blunt resistant. They're a magic being. They have spirit sight and void sanity. I don't think void sanity matters for middle age. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's a late age type thing, but I don't think you pay much for it either. Why do we love these guys? Mind Blast. Remember, in Dom 6, they've changed this to not have ammo. It's based on your fatigue. So they will continuously Mind Blast until they hit about 50 fatigue, in which case they will switch off of Mind Blast into melee only. So once they've stopped Mind Blasting, they will only go into melee. That's a bit of a problem, and they're not sacred, so we can't just solve that with a blessing like we could with, say, early era Agartha or early era Relay. That's unfortunate, but because they're not sacred, we also don't have a cap. So you can get 10 plus of these guys out in a single turn, and they're not cap only, so you could get a lot of these guys out. Mind Blasting is somewhat tiring. It's 5 fatigue. If we look here, we have base encumbrance of 2. So it's not bad, is what I'm trying to say here. You'll get, let's say, 11, 12 rounds, maybe slightly more than that before they'll switch to melee. The Mind Blasts themselves are excellent. Absolutely excellent. So the damage is really low. What's nice about it is A, range 100, precision 100. It's armor negating. Now, they do have to do a magic resistance roll. We do psychic damage. They paralyze on the initial hit here. The psychic damage is very low at 1, but remember, you still get a DRN roll on that. And its magic resistance negates. Does not affect mindless beings. That is pretty notable. So if you're fighting someone like middle-aged Ermor or other ones that have lots and lots of mindless troops, and generally speaking, only their leadership has a mind, you can Mind Blast out the commanders and the rest of the army will just crumble. Quite powerful in the right circumstances. If you're having to fight them as one of those nations, you need to add something to your army, ideally with high magic resist, that can soak Mind Blasts. Otherwise, you're going to find your leadership assassinated quite quickly. Very, very good. When you do attack closest, what generally will happen is, as the infantry runs towards you, or the cavalry, they'll get stunned. And so what'll happen is, they'll trail in. So rather than a nice coherent line hitting your line, they'll just trickle in to our meteorite guards, ideally, who will then just proceed to skewer them. Just absolutely skewer them. If something is in melee and gets paralyzed, it essentially takes their defense to like 0 to 2. and you'll just get a free stab. So it makes an incredibly powerful support unit here with the possibility of assassinating leadership if the enemy built their army incorrectly for certain nations. So very, 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 very powerful and not particularly limited other than by cost and recruitment points. Very good. Next, we have the Illithid Soldier. This is the same guy. However, he's equipped a Meteorite Trident. Actually, no, let's back up. We also have a Life Drain. It's an okay attack that is magic. When you hit with it, it's armor piercing and it does Life Drain. Life Drain will allow you to heal yourself and recuperate fatigue. However, even if you do get your fatigue down, they won't switch back to Mind Blasting. That's pretty notable. The Illithid Soldier is the same guy, but he has put on the better armor. He is wearing the Meteorite Cuirass and a Meteorite Cap. That makes him 17 protection, 19 on the head. Very nice. The Meteorite Trident, a length 3 with 10 attack and 25 magic piercing damage is great. He's still Mind Blast, which is great. Mind Blast was updated, so it's not affected by our armor encumbrance, which is good. The problem with these guys is, for the cost of this guy, I could essentially get some Illithids and some Meteorite Guards. Meteorite Guards are good melee troops, good heavy infantry, and Illithids are great support / magic damage units. You'd say, okay, well, I'll just get them in one troop. Well, that's less attacks. I could Mind Blast and hit somebody with a Trident with the other troop. This guy's only going to do one or the other. Now, the benefit here is, this is a really strong troop that you can keep still for about 12-ish rounds because he'll Mind Blast until he gets tired, and then he'll go into melee. So you could station some small squads of these, like, in the back flanking your leadership, and they'll stand still. So when that light cavalry gets there, your light cavalry can fight these guys rather than some bodyguards or just your straight leadership. It's also nice to hold still for buffs. That can be relevant at times. I like these guys a lot, but I find it hard to justify recruiting them. I think generally speaking, like I said, I'd rather have Meteorite Guards and Illithids because they do 2 different things. However, a couple small squads of these, like let's say, I don't know, 10 and 10 on like the left and right side of my leadership, or like 5, 5, and 5, have a set of 5 behind my leader. So if something flies to rearmost or flanks to the very back, you can set just some nice protective units with these guys. Quite useful, but again, just really hard to justify that price. I would love to spam these guys out. They would be incredible, but the Meteorite Guard Illithid combo I do think is better. Next, we have our land recruits. We have the Hybrid, can only be recruited in coastal forts, and the Hybrid Trooper. The Hybrid is a very light infantry. He has a spear attack and a tentacle attack. Note, he is an amphibian, but his spear is made of iron, so it will rust if you go underwater. His cuirass is leather, so it will not. These guys are okay. 11 morale's fine. 10, mostly human stats, although slightly better. More HP, more strength. They're 12 gold, 3 resources, 21 recruitment points. Little pricey on the recruitment point, but we're not going to have a ton of stuff to recruit on land anyways, so it's kind of moot. 3 of these guys will fit into a square because they're size 3. So you'd have 6 attacks coming out at okay amounts. Do note the tentacle, again, is untyped damage. That has its uses, although it is rare. And the big brother of the Hybrid is the Hybrid Trooper. I do like the Troopers more, going from 3 resources to 6. However, the difference in recruitment points is only 3. So this is generally not you're going to get about the same amount. He puts on sharkskin gear, so that, again, will not rust, although his spear is still made of iron. However, he's got a cap and a shield, slightly better armor, same amount of attacks. They have the Spirit Sight, which is rather nice, and the Amphibian, the good morale. I like these guys okay. They're definitely not as good as your Meteorite Guards. Let's just get that out of the way. But maybe a second line of these guys to fill in gaps to increase your attack density. On the sides, as just some lightish troops. One or the other of these could be your Lance Catchers. I think these are okay. They're flavorful and cool, which gives them some points in my book. I mean, am I excited to recruit hybrid troopers? No, not really. At least not as excited as the ladies who created them. But it's interesting at least, and at least it's like they've got 2 attacks. We do have good water access, so we can get quickness on them pretty effectively. That would be kind of interesting. That would be what 6. That'd be 12 attacks. Am I doing that right? 6. Yeah, 12 attacks per square. That'd be okay. That's something interesting, vaguely. In addition to all that, we also get some free spawn. These are I guess, the really devout ladies who just cannot control themselves. And they're pretty much garbage. It's the same chassis, essentially. So those are the lights. I'm pretty sure those were spawned in as free spawn. I don't think I recruited any. And then we have this guy here who just has the tentacle attack. And we have this guy here who has a club and a tentacle attack. So just some random stuff. At least for these guys, they're not aquatic like the aboleth problem. So these guys, at least if I get too many of them, I can just throw them away into a throne or something. I think are they even free? No, they do have an upkeep. Yeah, they do have a little bit of an upkeep, but it's not horrendous. They're fine. Again, lance catchers is the main use here. So, and I don't get too many of them. I don't know what applies to how many spawn. As you can see here, it's a castle I own. It's got my dominion. It's got a lab. I think it's just a small amount per turn, or a small random amount. This has been here for a while, as you can see, because I built it up to a castle. And that's the total amount that I have collected. So it's not much. It really isn't. Maybe just for flavor, have them as bodyguards or something. They can protect Daddy Illithid or something. It's a thing. It's kind of whatever. Next, we also get to call things in through the Void Gate. So we have we have the site, the Void Gate. You can have somebody, it has to be an Astral Mage, and you can only have one. So I have this guy going in, so I can't do this. That's a little unfortunate. I wish we could have multiple people go in there to summon, because our numbers are just so bloody low. We'll look at these guys in a minute, but do note they do have a summoning skill, which helps what they get. These are not the only things you can get. These are just the ones I have sitting here at the moment. Generally speaking, they are sacred. They have regeneration and various different things. I think they're all magic beings. This is almost like an elemental of some sort. Fire resist, poison resist. It's mindless. 2 crush attacks. It's got the resistances. I think the main thing here is sacred and regeneration. We have these dudes. Thing from Beyond, from Relay. Lots of tentacles, has some mind blasting. He's ethereal, that's kind of cool. We have these guys. These are aquatic only guys. Do note no upkeep because they are summon free spawn type things. Has poison barbs, blind spirit sight, mind blasting, a power allies. Just really cool stuff. Here is a thing from the void. This guy's multiple tentacles, got regen. Overall, the numbers are very low. I've only got one more set of these. They were some tramplers that were kind of sort of like squishy earth elementals, I guess. I did lose them at one point. But this is the entirety I've gotten. And this test game is on turn 24. And I've almost every turn, had somebody in here doing this. So unfortunately, the numbers are just too small to try to make a blessing for these guys. It would be very cool if we could have like maybe lab and temples required. We could have one guy do it in every castle, kind of like Satis with their sacred serpents. But that's not how it works. So while they're so cool, the numbers are just not worth it. So I would not plan a bless around these guys. They're just a flavorful bonus more than anything else. So overall on the troop lineup, I like them. Having mindless troops, both the Lobo Guard and the Shambler Thrall is nice. Tramplers that can't retreat's excellent. We have a decent to good line troop. Now, do note no shield, so we are really vulnerable to crossbows. But beyond that, this is a perfectly fine heavy troop, and it's a heavy troop that comes in with a magic damage attack. And whereas most units like this, you would be very, very resource limited, we're resource limited on these guys, but we can recruit as many of those as we can. And then switch over to illithids to use up the rest of our recruitment points. So it looks like my resources here have changed recently. I could plop one more guy there. So yeah, this is not bad. So I'm getting some frontline, and I'm getting our equivalent of archers. This is not too terrible. I don't have the best or the worst capital in this game. It's okay. It's okay. So pretty nice there. I do really like that combo. Very, very usable. And some other specialty troops that are more or less useful depending on the circumstances. Heroes, commanders, and prophets. We have 3 heroes as middle-age relay. We have the Stargazer. Note, he comes in with 5 astral, 2 water, and a glamour, priest level 2. He has an amphibian. He has blunt resistant. He's a magical being. 230 magical leadership. I should call out, remember, anything down below in our troops that is a magical being has to have magical leadership. So that is actually useful for us. In addition, he's a Taskmaster +3. If I got this guy, I'm probably keeping him safe to do big rituals or like Master and Slaves or something later in the game. Cool unit. Love to get him. Next, we have the Trader King. Note, he is a Water 5 mage. Dang powerful. That does mean, and him, not even just him, we have other guys who can do it too, but we have easy access to Bishop Fish, so we can get some Holy 3s out, which are rather helpful. He also can cast some pretty big water for us. Not much else to say about him. It's cool to get a Water 5 mage. We have an aboleth, a survivor from early era. 3 water, 4 astral, 2 glamour. Do note that between 5 and 6, we've lost our death access and we've gained glamour. But a lot of glamour stuff can't be done underwater, so just be aware of that before you get too excited about the glamour stuff. Overall, he's cool. He has Enslaved Mind. That's kind of interesting. Beyond that, though, just a nice to get. Moving up to our regular commanders here, we do have a scout. An amphibious scout with 50 stealth and dark vision for 35 gold is excellent. I love these guys. Having a scout is very nice. Recently, we played Phlegra, who doesn't get national scouts, and it hurt. It hurt a lot, because it was very late in the game before we actually got an indie scout. So we can get these guys. Do note that they are not restricted. I'm 90% sure. No, I take that back. They are aquatic only, so we cannot get them from our land forts. However, that's still fine. That's still fine. Next up, we have a Trader Prince. This is an Atlantean chassis wielding meteorite gear. 110 gold, 43 resources, 1 recruitment point. A little on the pricey side. However, they have good stats. 27 HP, good strength, good attack, good okay defense, good protection. 21 protections, nothing to sniff at. Wielding a length 3 meteorite trident that he's good with 12 attack. Piercing, magic damage, excellent. Magic gear. Does have dark vision. These are our best mundane troop leaders, generally speaking. So if we want to read around meteorite guards, this would be the guy to really do it. They're fine. Very pricey, though. Be careful you're not getting too many of them unless you need them. Next up, we have the Illithid Lord. Very cool unit. He only has 50 leadership. That's his biggest problem. No formations, unlike the Trader Prince, and no bonus. However, he does give us Taskmaster +2. So whereas the meteorite guy is 100, so he gets +1 and formations, we get a +2 no formations for slave troops. Whether that's useful or not just depends what you're doing. Amphibian, blunt resistant, magic being, spirit sight, all good things. He has good gear on. He does have magical leadership. Do note that that is pretty valuable because, again, we need that to lead around magic beings, aka our illithid troops. And he's okay. It's nice to have good equipment on him. A perfectly fine leader. He can at least Mind Blast too, so he's not just sitting in the back and doing nothing. Hold, and actually, I don't think you need to hold. You could probably just put him on Stay Behind Troops, because he's just going to Mind Blast while he does that. I did not think to check during my testing. If he goes above fatigue, does he switch to melee? But even if he does, on Stay Behind Troops, he should stay safe at least. Next up, we have the Slave Priest. This is an amphibious slave, priest level 1 sacred. Only really useful for building your temples, maybe some light preaching. They're not particularly great for anything else. I will note they're only 65 gold, so they're pretty darn cheap. That's fine. Next up, we have the Star Child. This one can also be recruited in coastal forts. So if we take a look here, This is my Star Child. So note up here, only 2 of these are my national troops, despite this being a castle that I'm at. So we have the Star Child, the hybrid commander, and then we have those hybrid type troops. And then the other things are site or indie dependent. Looking at those, this is a Astral level 1 assassin that uses a meteorite dagger and has Mind Blast. Pretty good for an assassin, I have to say. Something like Body Ethereal or Twist Fate, and then just Mind Blasting. Doubly if you can give him some sort of bodyguard item, like the Skull Talisman or a handful of acorns or something, just to ensure that nothing can get to him. And then, generally speaking, your Mind Blasting will finish them off pretty effectively. They're Assassin level 2s. They have okay stealth at 55. As a researcher, 92 gold for 7 is not efficient, but they can still do it if you're in a pinch when you're building some to go assassinate somebody or something. I will say their defense and protection is really low, so you really don't want to be in fights. You'd much prefer to Mind Blast or cast something at people. Next, we have Slave Mage, a pretty efficient troop here. They cost a lot at 245, so that's a little pricey. However, because they are slaves, 98 gold per year for 13 research, that's pretty darn good. 13 is a respectable amount, and it is still pretty efficient. Note the very low morale, though. Watch out for that. You'll have them run away from fights quite often. They come in with 2 water in Astral and a random of water, earth, astral, nature. Decent. Very decent there for pathing. Underwater, you can do big water stuff. Above water, you can commune and do like falling frosts. You can do moss body. A little bit of earth, although we're not really enough earth to make a big difference. They're fine. They're pretty good. And 13, not slow to recruit, means you can ramp up your research pretty quickly if you want to invest the money. Because the problem is, you can easily zero out your money on troop recruitment. So you have to know when it's time to get research and when it's time to get more expansion troops. Next, we have Star Spawn. This is 385 gold, slow to recruit. That's pretty pricey. You get 1 water, you get 2 astral, priest level 2, and a random of water, earth, astral, and glamour. 13 research, however, they are 154 upkeep per year, so not good researchers. They are sacred, they are amphibious, they are blunt resist, magic being. They have the summoning skill. This is interesting. Summoning skill is the chance of getting better things from the Void Gate, and you get 1 summoning skill per successful summon. While you're doing the summoning, you have a pretty strong a chance of getting attacked by things that come out. They work kind of like an assassination attempt, so you're definitely going to want bodyguards on your summoner. And you're going to be very sad when your high skill summoner dies and you have to start over. And you're spending a lot. 385 to get a guy to do it, and the 154 upkeep is pretty pricey. I do think it's worthwhile, and we are limited to just 1. So that's what he's going to be doing. These guys, however, as just a mage themselves, not great. We have better water access. For the Astral, this is okay, but we could communion cheap guys into it also, or Light of the Northern Star up to 2. They do give us the availability for Priest, so Sermons of Courage can be kind of nice to have. They also have good magical leadership, which can be pretty valuable. They can, with some help, maybe boost like gate around, although we have a better guy to do gate stuff. I think their main use is that summoning skill and leading around some troops. At least as a troop leader, they can Mind Blast, they can do buffing stuff, so they're okay there, just pricey. Next, we have the Star Spawn. This is our cap only. Water 1, Astral 3, and we have a 210% chance. So we get 2 independent rolls for the 200%, and that's Water, Earth, Astral, and Glamour. So in theory, if you got lucky, you could have a Astral 5 guy just roll in naturally. Pretty darn nice there. These guys are more likely to get high enough that you could lead gate around. 170 magic leadership. Not sacred, that should be notable here. Yeah, not much to say about these guys. They're strong astral mages. This is like immediately a Light of the Northern Star or an anti-magic, either one of those. That's pretty nice. leading communions to do like master and slave or something is pretty viable here. I like these guys well enough. 410 isn't breaking the bank for what they are. They are not efficient at all as researchers, so don't get these guys until you're going to use them in combat. Finally, we have the hybrid commander. This is our other coastal recruit, and do note it's coastal specifically for those guys. They're okay leaders, 75 leadership. They are amphibian. They have spirit sight, has a bronze trident and a plate cuirass, which unfortunately is made of iron, so that's going to rust when they go underwater. They do, however, have mind blast. So they're generally going to stand the back and mind blast. These are the guys that are probably going to have to lead around your hybrids unless you bring up a trader prince. Overall, they're okay. We do really miss those better troop recruits on coasts that earlier I had, but at least we have something. Do note that Starchild as a recruit from a coastal fort, as a researcher, 92 for 7 is not great. However, you'll probably have magic scales, so that'll probably be magic scale 3, so that would be 10 research for 92, which does push it into efficient. Otherwise, we're going to struggle a little bit to scale up our research, depending on how many underwater forts we have. And these are, with the magic scales, relatively efficient. So these may end up being your efficient researchers. We would certainly love to find something like I did here, where I got sages as a pretty decent 96 gold upkeep for 17. Do note that I've got magic scales rocking here. So the research efficiency is pretty low, and we do want a lot of research on this nation. So just be aware of that. As for profit, what would I make my profit? It's probably going to end up being your initial Illithid Lord. That's totally fine. If he dies, I think that the Trader Prince is better because he has just better generic gear. And I would probably stick to one of those two because they are relatively safe. They can Mind Blast if you want instead of cast spells for some reason. We don't really need the Holy Three to bless anything, so it's mainly for grabbing thrones. In that case, the Illithid guy has 14 map move versus the Slave Prince is 10, so he's a little bit quicker. Do note, he does not have a foot slot, so we couldn't put flying shoes or anything on him. In that case, the Trader Prince comes ahead, but then in that case, maybe we're looking at trying to get into air and making a flying carpet. It is what it is, whatever. We do have easy access to Bishop Fish, another thing that doesn't have feet, so flying carpets are actually vaguely useful to us if we can get some air on our nation. National items and spells. For national items, we actually have 2 national items. Unfortunately, they're not particularly great. We have the Anemone Mace. This is a water 1, cost 5 water gems, and it comes in at construction 3. Has Anemone Poison, which is poison and magic. It's armor piercing, but do note you have to... It's actually on hit, not on damage, so I'll give it that. And it has a paralyze effect and some damage. It's whatever. Unfortunately, it's length 1. I would never make one, frankly. And we also have... There it was. I was looking in the wrong spot. We have a 2-hander at very powerful magic items. We have the Jellybird, which is a 2-hander, requires astral and fire. Does a Jellybird poison, which is 25 magic poison damage, which is armor piercing and has a paralyze in AoE 1. I don't know why he would ever make these, frankly, but that's a lot of poison and a lot of paralyze on an on-hit effect, I suppose. As for national magic, weirdly enough, we have no national spells. Kind of strange. Beyond that, what are you going to want on this nation? Lots of astral and water stuff, mainly. So, of course, communions. We are going to want mind burning. We are going to want teleport, paralyze. Soul Slay is a place that we can easily get to. With a Light of the Northern Star, we can have our Soul to Recruit guy, our Soul to Recruit Astral 2 guys can just be Astral 3s and they can spam this, or you could get into Little Communions and spam some Soul Slay. That can be rather powerful. Moving up higher, ones that we don't normally see. Enslaved Mind is reachable for us. This is a 1-person version, though. I don't know how much value there is there. Imprint Souls is vaguely interesting as a remote attack. And Gateway. Gateway is kind of interesting. because you can have a leader who casts Gateway. Himself and his army can go from one of your labs to a different lab. That is pretty nice to be able to bring people around, especially because our best troops are going to be recruited underwater only, but they are amphibious. So you recruit them up, put them into the leader, and then he can gate them to, let's say, the throne fort that you're defending, or to your front line that is fighting on land. That gives us a lot more mobility, and 10 astrals, not the worst cost for that. Moving up higher, we could do Divine Name. That does allow you to turn troops into commanders. I don't think that's huge on this nation. Correct me if I'm wrong. Nexus Gate could be interesting. Permanent gate between here and the Nexus. The Nexus is another plane, just like we have the cave layer. There's a Nexus layer. You can use that to travel from here to the Nexus to the other gate. If you wanted to do that, this is very pricey, but that could be incredibly powerful. You can essentially make shortcuts for yourself. Also, Master and Slave at level 9 is doable for us. It's only 8 astral. You would need a large communion to do it, but the entire battlefield gets a magic resistance, easily negate save, or you enslave them. That could be game winning. Obviously, you'd have a guy and you would pile on magic pin items, maybe even blessings to them, if he was going to be in charge of doing this. In enchantment, we have Dispel, so we are pretty good at getting rid of other people's globals. Astral Shield is always nice. Eyes of God, if you want map-wide vision. Anti-magic can be rather useful, especially because we're going to bomb our own resistance with our high magic scales, most likely. Disenchantment, even better at getting rid of globals. Arcane Nexus, we get pearls based on other people doing forging and empowering and rituals. Can be very, very powerful there. Construction, I think we need construction. We can do some astral boosters. We would sure like some research boosters, but we don't have good paths for it. We don't have native air. We can get some nature, so maybe that's a route we could get into it. We have some glamour, so that's another place that we could get a little bit of research boost. Both of those are going to be at construction 5, unfortunately. We do have Juggernaut construction. That can be kind of interesting. I think these are mostly used for sieges, although it's been a hot minute since I've built a Juggernaut. Evocation. I think in Evocation, we're looking at water stuff, so cold spells and falling frosts, I think is something we're interested in. In addition, from astral things, starfires, solar rays if we're fighting the undead, arcane probing. I think this is actually worthwhile. I know a lot of people dislike my dislike of most remote searching because of the efficiency problems. This one's probably worthwhile because we can use this to bootstrap us into the better astral search, which will find all sites for us. Magic Duel, we do have astral level 1 mages, so we have efficient magic duelers that can be very potent. Stellar Cascades, Astral Geyser are both interesting. Astral Geyser is a horror marks people and does some damage that's armor negating, so this can be useful for wiping out heavy infantry if you need to. And Stellar Cascades is a high fatigue, a large area of effect that we can cast pretty effectively, so we could drop this on the enemy's heavy infantry and use that to take them out. We do have people who can mind hunt, although be careful, we don't have any healers. So you'd have to be very sure the enemy does not have any astral mages present. But if he doesn't, we can roll native astral 4s. So that could be really useful. Wipe out scouts that are holding items or gems. Wipe out all the enemy leadership or a key mage right before a big fight. Those could be pretty good. We can cast our Astral Tempest. This hits everyone on the battlefield with 1 armor negating magic. It's an MR negates. That's not terrible for us. We have decent HP troops that we could hide behind while this just grinds people down. We could put up anti-magic to help protect ourselves. Going into Alteration, the big one here is going to be Body Ethereal. Quite nice. We can easily get somebody to cast baleful star, so we can curse enemy armies before we fight them. We can do the rewrite fate type things. Very, very nice. Time stop is reachable for us. Wish is reachable, although you're probably looking at your pretender for wish. But many of these things are pretty good. Will of Fates, we could get in a small communion or even just have a lucky Astral 5 guy just cast this for us. And it gives everyone Twist Fate, essentially. Very, very nice for just all of our stuff, but especially our junky troops. Conjuration, Power of Spheres is rather nice, as is Light of the Northern Star. Light of the Northern Star especially, we can turn all those Astral 1s into Astral 2s, which are much, much more dangerous in combat since they can at least mind burn. We have Etheric Record if you want to see the scales of a nation. We have Etheric Knowledge. This is the site search spell that finds everything, but it costs 25. So that's why I think you have to bootstrap through the other site search into this one. We also have Aethergate. Aethergate is very, very powerful. Aether Warriors are ridiculously good. It also would give us a Aether Lord Commander, which comes in with Astral and Death. So a way we can re-break ourselves into death if we can get this off. The gate increases magic skills by 2 and allows us to cast the Aether Warrior spell with a bonus. I do think that this is worthwhile considering for this nation. It also can be done underwater, nice and safely, or on land if you're not worried about that. In addition, in Conjuration, summon water power for our slave mages if we're doing underwater wars. Obviously, water elementals is super, super powerful underwater, especially Boss Body is coming from Alteration. Voice of Tiamat. Voice of Tiamat at Conjuration 5, not only does that give us full-size elementals, Voice of Tiamat searches for all elemental gem sites underwater. So if you're not going to do the Etheric Record or Etheric Knowledge to do all sites, you should probably at least do Voice of Tiamat to get all the elemental ones, which would allow us maybe to break into some air, and we could use owl quills or flying carpets if we can get that income. So, as you can see, lots and lots of magic that we would really like to get, and unfortunately, we just don't have the best research out there. It's just expensive or slow. I'm very sad that we don't have any national spells, but we get to do some spells that a lot of nations don't touch, like Aethergate or the Master and Slave type stuff, so it evens out a little bit. Let's bring that all together. Middle Age Relay is a nation that thrives underwater. However, we can pretty easily get on land because we have a decent heavy infantry troop that functions okay on land, although crossbows will be our absolute bane. We have very strong mind blasting troops that are not sacred, so we can spam them quite effectively from multiple places. Over here, you can see I have the same underwater troop lineup. I can get meteor guards. I can get illithids. Very strong. I think we really, really, really want to focus on getting lots of good water forts early, doubly so if you're competing with somebody. In this game, I have Ys that is being a bit of a pain. Them and Abyssi have gone to war recently. They were much bigger beforehand. They were causing me a lot of problems. They still probably will in this game. Overall, though, water is where our strength comes from, and we are pretty good at projecting that strength on land. That's the makings of a good water nation. We have something to do on land, even if they're not the best. Assassins are decent. Mind blasting assassins are definitely not the worst thing ever. And we have some okay troops. In this case, I had some crossbowmen. I much prefer to recruit crossbows than these junky hybrids. But if you have to, at least the hybrids are usable. Beyond that, I think we're kind of predictable, so be careful there. And we are very, very weak to crossbows, so just note that that is the case. Buffing ourselves with Body Ethereal across the whole army would be rather nice, and we do have a Astral 1 mage that doesn't have much else to do, so we may consider spamming out lots and lots of Body Ethereal. Let's take a look at some gods. As for pretenders for Relay, we don't get a ton of choices, although we do have quite a few national ones. From Dominion 1, we only get the Archmage, the Grand Hydromancer, and the Firstborn of the Star. Note that the Archmage is an aquatic only, so that kind of puts him a little on the downside for me. The Grand Hydromancer does have a water gem gen. And the firstborn of the star, I don't love 130 points for one of these guys, but at least he's coming in with Astral 2. I wouldn't chance using his summoner skill, though, because things might assassinate him, and that would make you very sad. He's okay. He does have a very cool robe. Very nice. Moving up to Dominion 2, we have the Worm, which is an okay amphibious expander. We have the King in Yellow. Wow. However, I don't know about this guy. We don't get anything from the magic scale, unfortunately. 2 Astral and a Glamour. For 170 points, I could have 2 Astral and a Glamour for 140 points right here. He's not a particularly great expander or anything. I don't think this guy gets any play, but very cool. Love the reference. We do have Ghost King. We have Master Lich. We have the Earth Snake. I'm not in love with aquatic only things, so those are kind of out. Moving up to Dom 3, we have the Utter Vast for 300 points. This thing is a beast. This thing is insane. Bunch of Steel Strength, a whole lot of Mind Blast. He comes in at Ethereal. He has Blink and Teleport. He can teleport around on the map. Affliction Resistance, 99. Unsurroundable, 10. He has actual damage reversal, so when things hit him, lol JK, reverse card, you actually hurt yourself. These guys can be absolutely devastating. We also have the Void Lord for 230. Again, just too expensive. I don't know what you're doing with this. These magic scale limits for national gods on nations that already have that scale is completely pointless. So knock that off, knock a few points off his cost. I'd be more interested. Does have a Drain Life tentacle. That's funny. Beyond that, we have some regular ones. We also have Dagon. Some people swear by this guy. I still think he's way too expensive at 320. We are probably a scales nation based on our troops and our mage lineup, and you just can't afford anything with him, unfortunately. Moving up to our Dom 4s, we do get the Void Lurker. This is a, I believe you are immobile. An Ethereal, Astral 3, that's kind of whatever. Does have Mind Slime, be careful. Putting your own mages near this, that will affect them. I don't love it. I guess he has 110 points, so he is actually cheaper. So if you were just going to go for somebody to do like a big Astral global spell, this would be the cheapest one to do it on. We have the Monolith, that's okay. And we have the Statue of the World. Remember, we don't really have reliable sacreds, so I think what we want is we want to actually craft Shroud of the Battle Saint or whatever it's called that makes the wearer sacred. And I think we want a Mage Bless or nothing. So those are kind of our two choices. Let's take a look at something that I built for us. View created. This is Trent the Tent. He is a star spawn, or the firstborn of the star. He is an imprisoned, and he brings in Arcane Finesse, Farcaster, and Inspirational Presence. Inspirational Presence is nice for the guys who are going to have to lead some of our troops around to give a +1, because they're not great leaders. But they also make our magic leadership able to transport more troops if we gate. And I think that's something I'd like to be able to do. So we would craft them a Shroud, which would make them sacred, so they could move around more troops. This would allow us to take a guy and have him move around Meteorite Guard and Illithids in the same gate jump pretty effectively. Farcaster, if I was going to go for Falling Frosts, I think spamming out some Shrouds to make them sacred and have Farcaster on them is worthwhile. And Arcane Finesse for that big battlefield enslave, or even just Mindburn or Soul Slay. A lot of our guys that we recruit in, let's view, Pretender, I should have shown this earlier. Our mages here, no armor, no armor, no armor. So we're not replacing something good with a Shroud of the Battle Saint. It's only going to be a bonus for us. So I think that's why I would be more likely to use that than I normally am. Farcaster, beyond the usefulness of something like Falling Frost, this also will help you get your buffs out. Mainly speaking here is going to be like Twist Fate or Body Ethereal, and being able to just buff things a little bit further away is rather nice. You could also throw a Shroud on your assassins. which would help with their mind blasting, the arcane finesse for that. So kind of a utility pick. Same thing with his stuff up here. I wanted to get some death on him so that he can do Aethergate. That allows us to bring in an Aether Lord who can take over the Aethergate duties or just help with them. The Earth allows us to craft a hammer that could help us get some more shrouds out on the cheap or whatever else. And the fire was mainly just got for the inspirational presence and then just paying for this bless. Coming in at imprisoned, by the time he comes out, we should have some decent research. So hopefully there'll be something else he can do. We do take relatively maxed out scales. I like getting the cold because we may do falling frost. Remember that in the deep water, you can only move the temperature scales one way, like cold 1, heat 1. So this won't affect us as much as it otherwise would. And that just lets us pay for some extra stuff. The 5 Dominion Strength doesn't matter too much because we don't have sacred recruits, but we don't want to be super low either and get pushed around. So this was just as much as I could afford while getting the other stuff I wanted. I like this guy quite a lot. I don't think we need an Awake Expander, and I think we do need research and scales. So we both need production for Meteorite Guard and recruitment points for Illithids. So I think we want both of these. We want lots of money and lots of magic, so lots of this stuff. So overall, I like this guy quite a lot. It does lean into my preferred playstyle, which is kind of scaly type stuff. And yeah, it's interesting. I'd like to get some Battle Shrouds out. I'd like to do Aethergate. I'd like to use Gate. So this is a guy that's going to be pretty good at all of those things. Note, he's a really good leader. So in late game, he may actually join armies and move things around. He would also allow me to bring in some stuff I normally don't have good access to. Surprise somebody with like temper armor. Our Meteorite Guards would quite like that. And we're not very good at doing it natively. So this is one way that we could get that out onto the battlefield. But he has other little surprises he could do. If you armored him up really well, we're high enough in death that we could get Soul Vortex going. So Body Ethereal, Soul Vortex, Phoenix Pyre. He could do that type of thing. And that's an interesting shenanigan for the late game. Overall, though, I'm not in love with our choices on this nation. I wish we had a cheaper Dom 1 guy that was still decent or better than what we got. I wish we had some more usable monster chassis and Titan chassis. So it's okay. It's not the worst. There are some choices there if you want to do something different, but this just falls directly into my type of play style. So that's what we're going to go with. In conclusion, Middle Age Relay is a very fun nation. I think it has a lot of different things it can do. While it doesn't have the national spells that I'd like to see, it does have spells access that most nations don't get too into. And while we are mostly a water recruit nation, we can project that power on land just fine. So we're going to mainly want to get a good power base underwater, and then we're going to use that to project onto land. We have recruitable assassins, which are really cool. Illithids are just cool. The Shambler stuff is cool. I like this nation. High on flavor. Much more able to actually win a game than the early age version, and not as hated as the late age nation, as they are a pop kill madness inducing nation that people are going to absolutely hate your guts. At least here we are the middle ground between the two, a perfect representation of a transitional middle age nation in my opinion. If you've enjoyed this one, don't forget to leave a like on the video. That helps me an absolute ton. If you are not already a subscriber, I hope this is the video that has earned your subscription. I'd love to hear from you in the comments or join us on stream to have a good time. And if you'd like to go above and beyond, you can support this channel financially via a super thanks, joining us on stream with a super chat, or possibly consider becoming a member. As a member of the channel, you get early access to videos like this one, or anything else I'm working on and has just uploaded early. Either way, all support is much appreciated. I look forward to seeing you guys on stream. Leave your comments below and keep your daughters away from that well. You never know what kind of Cthulhu monsters just awaiting there. I'll see you on stream, builders. Babel out.